Hello, dear students of Junior 5, and welcome to our final lesson this term. So, we've came to the end of the term, and the exam is very soon. Also, we've finished our curriculum, and you have been all excellent this term. You've been focused, you've been um, very understanding, and you've been studying. You got good marks in the quiz, and we are very proud of you this term. So we came to our final step just right before our exam on the 30th of December. We have the revision today. Okay, you know that the revision booklet had already been printed out and available for you at school. So here you can just answer them alone or you can answer them on Zoom with your teachers. However, today I'm going to tell you some tips on how to answer some of the tricky questions that might come in the exam. Okay, first question that most of you do incorrectly is when in the structure part when they ask you to do as shown between brackets, and then they ask you give you a sentence just like Sally never goes skiing on Tuesday. Okay, so the sentence is Sally never goes skiing on Tuesday. And then they ask you another question, or they put between the brackets, ask a question. Okay, so here's how you answer this question. First, I just want you to know, dear students, that whenever you find here, I'm trying to just show you. Whenever you find a day of the week or an adverb of frequency. So when you find the preposition on plus a day of a week, or whenever you find an adverb of frequency, which is a part of the group, always, usually, often, sometimes, rarely, seldomly, scarcely, and never. These are our adverbs of frequency. So whenever we have an adverb of frequency or a day of a week in the sentence, and then they tell you to ask a question, what do? We always use one question word, and it is how often. So notice that we don't have a yes or no in the sentence. So this is not a yes or no question. We cannot start with the verb. We cannot ask, does Sally go skiing on Tuesday? Because we don't have a yes or a no in the sentence. So a yes or no question is going to be incorrect. Also, we say that Sally never goes skiing on Tuesday. That means that Sally can be going skiing on other days of the week. However, on Tuesday in particular, she never goes. So we cannot ask, when does Sally go skiing? Why can't we ask with when? Because if I ask you, when do you go to school? Will your answer be from Tuesday to Thursday every week? Or your answer will be, I never go to school on Friday. If I tell you, when do you go to school? Can you tell me, I never go to school on Friday? It doesn't sound like a correct answer. That means it's just like as if I'm asking you, what's your name? And your answer is, I am 10 years old. You're answering in a different part than what I'm asking about. So the correct question here is how often. And right after how often, we use the helping verb do or does, because this is a present simple, since that we have here on Tuesday, which is a keyword, and also we have never, which is another keyword for the present simple tense. So how often, and the subject is Sally, so we're going to use does. How often does Sally And we're going to drop the S from the main verb since we've already added it to does. So, how often does Sally go skiing on Tuesday? Okay, why did I kept Tuesdays in the sentence? I didn't remove it because when I'm asking how often on Tuesdays, here I'm asking about the word never. So the answer will be Sally never goes skiing on Tuesday. But when I say how often does Sally go skiing, it can be Sally never goes skiing on Tuesday, or it can be Sally goes skiing on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So the answer can be anything other than Tuesday. So it's better to say, how often does Sally go skiing on Tuesday? This is the correct answer. So if you have a question like it in the exam, always remember if the sentence contains on plus weekday or an adverb of frequency, the question is always how often, and then followed by the verb and then the rest of the sentence. Remember, if we have does in the question, it drops the S from the verb. So it gets back to its original form. Okay, so this is our first tricky question that most of you do incorrectly. The second question that is also some of you found tricky are questions that include said verbs. Like when I say, my father know what I am doing at the moment. Okay, so here we're asked to correct the verb. Notice that what I'm doing at the moment, we have here at the moment, which is a keyword for which tense? The present continuous. Very good. And when we find a keyword for the present continuous, automatically we add verb to be in the present form, depending on the subject, whether it's going to be is, am, or are. Am comes with subject I, is comes with subject he, she, or it, and are comes with the plural subjects like they, we, or you. So as soon as we know it, here it's the present simple tense, present continuous tense, I'm sorry, we're going to look at the subject and then write verb to be plus ing. Except when it's a state verb. We said that before that stative verbs are verbs that do not get into the continuous form, even if the sentence is in the present continuous tense. That means that stative verbs are verbs that don't need an action to happen. They just happen, like perceptions, action, things that the mind does, like remember, forget, know, think, recognize, realize, and so on. Like senses that you have, like sight, you can see, you can taste, you can hear, you can smell. And also we have feelings like love, hate, like, dislike, need, feel. So we have things like that. And we have other verbs like own, belong, have, need, can, be. So these verbs happen without any action. Like when you say, I am a girl or I am a boy. Are you a girl or a boy right now? Yes, you are. Do you do anything to be a boy or a girl right now? No, but it's happening at the moment. So this is a stative verb. It doesn't require any action from you. Just like I have two arms. Do I have two arms at the moment? Yes, I do. Am I doing any action to have two arms? No, I just happen to have two arms. So, do I say I have two arms now or I am having two arms now? I say I have two arms now because I'm not doing any action. So, this These are examples of the state verb. So here we have the state verb know. So when I find the keyword for the present continuous, I take a look at the verb itself. Is it stative, that doesn't require an action from me to happen? Or is it an action verb that requires movement, like running, clapping, nodding, eating, and so on? Here, no. Do you need any action to know? No, you don't. So, my father knows. So, I put it in the present simple tense. And here, my father is he. So, it adds S to the main verb. So, it's going to be my father knows what I am doing at the moment. Okay? So, here is another tricky question, the stative verbs. If you find a verb and you're not sure whether it's an action or a stative verb, imagine yourself doing it. If you find yourself requiring a movement to do it, then it's a action verb. It's an action verb. If you find yourself having this action happening in front of you or to you or by you and you don't need an action to do it, that means it's a stative verb. So before you answer, check the verb and understand its meaning. And if you're not sure whether it's stative or action, think if it requires movements or not. This is how you'll know, and this is how you're going to answer the correct answer. So whenever you find a keyword for the present continuous, always look at the verb to make sure whether it's a stative verb or an action verb, because this is how the questions get tricky. Okay, so these are the samples of the structure questions, the tricky ones that we have today. Now we have different set of questions. Here we're going to check some mechanic questions, okay? The mechanic questions here, some of you do it incorrectly, so we're going to revise this in order to know how to answer them, okay? So first, the punctuation. What gets so tricky for you are the quotation marks. So let's see an example. Okay, here you're required to punctuate the sentence. Oh no, the player fell, the player slipped and broke his leg, said the commentator, the person who comments on the match. Okay, so here we can say that whenever the quotation has the word said or asked, whenever the sentence here has the word said or asked, we know it's a quotation. So we're going to automatically add quotation marks to the sentence. Always remember, students, that inside the quotation mark, all the punctuation applies. So if it's a sentence, we add a full stop at the end of it. If it's a question, we add a question mark at the end of it. If it's a strong feeling, we add an exclamation mark after it. If it has names, we capitalize the letters. If it has a list of things from the similar type, we add commas between them. So between the quotation marks, all the rules of the punctuation apply. So let's answer this one. So first we're going to open the quotation and say in capital letters, oh, comma, no, exclamation mark, another capital letter, the player slipped and broke his leg. Okay, and here's a full stop, and then we're going to close the quotation mark. Okay, so all the punctuation rules apply within the quotation marks. Doesn't mean that it's between quotations so it doesn't get punctuated. No, you add punctuations as usual, okay? If it ends with a full stop, so after you close the quotation, you capitalize the S. If it ends with a comma, so you don't capitalize the S. Here we have a full stop, so we say said the commentator, and we put another full stop. Here, if this sentence ends, just put a comma, and then we don't capitalize the S. Have you noticed the difference? So this is how we answer it. Now, we have another sentence that most of you answered it incorrectly in your writing booklet. So let's go over its answer. Okay, we have the rearranged question. And the sentence was not slash believe slash it slash another not slash or slash Egyptian slash a semicolon slash he slash is slash an exclamation mark. So you have this sentence in your booklet, in your writing booklet, and most of you couldn't answer it. So let's look at the answer. Since we have a capital letter, we always know that this is the word we're going to start with. So how are we going to start a sentence? We have an English expression that means, can you believe that? It's said to be believe it or not. Believe it or not means it's a surprise fact. This is a surprise fact, a fact that you might not believe it or it might surprise you. So believe it or not is a common expression meaning that the fact I'm going to say is so surprising that you might not believe it. So believe it or not, and after that we put semicolon. He is not Egyptian. And as surprising as this fact is, because I'm actually telling you before to believe it or not, I'm going to add the exclamation mark at the end of my sentence. So the answer is believe it or not, a semicolon, he is not Egyptian. Believe it or not is an expression we use to say after it a sentence that it's going to be a fact, but it's so surprising that you might not believe it. And we said that when we have strong feelings, we put exclamation mark by the end of it. So we say the expression, end it with a semicolon, and then we write our sentence and put an exclamation mark in the end. You can check it in your booklet, the writing booklet. It's on page 11, and it's the last sentence in the rearranged question. You can check it if you want. So this is how you answer the rearrange. Okay, now let's go to another type of question. Okay, we have here a common question that sounds like a little bit difficult, like the vocabulary. When you have in the vocabulary a big bubble that you are going to choose a number of words from in order to complete some sentences. So perhaps you have a word like skiing. You have another word that is snowboarding. You have a word like concert, and you have a newsletter and reform. Okay, so some of these words confuse you a little bit, okay, especially concert, and I don't know why. Okay, when I have a sentence like this, okay, the Alps are a great place to go. Dots. Okay, and then we have sentence number 2, and it says, okay, the good thing about dots is that if you fell down, you fall on board. Okay, how do we answer these two sentences? First, we know that the Alps are mountains, okay? The Alps are mountains and they are covered in snow. So it's a great place to go where? Skiing or snowboarding. Here we know that skiing and snowboarding are both sports that are practiced over snow. The first one is by using skis, the other one is by using a snowboard. So how can we tell the difference? The other one, the good thing about is that if you fell down, you fall on a board. So the first one here, it's on snow and you can do it as an adventure. So the Alps is a great place to go skiing. Okay? And this one is going to be, you're going to fall on a board. So you're going to use a board for this sport. So this is snow, snowboarding. If you are confused between two choices that sound a lot similar, read the sentences, understand their meanings, and try to figure out the slight difference, the small difference between both of them, and know which one to choose. Like when we say peace and we say slice. When do we use the word peace and when do we use the word slice? Knowing that peace is the word that we have in the homophones list 3 in spelling, so you have to know its meaning. So piece is said for a cake or a sandwich or a chocolate, but a slice is used for pizza or bread. What's the difference here and why do we use a slice of pizza instead of a piece of pizza? I will tell you why. Because a slice here is a triangle or rectangular shape. It's thin. It's thin. It doesn't have very big dimensions. But a piece of cake, a piece of chocolate, or a piece of your sandwich, okay, this piece is going to be bigger than a slice. It's going to be having bigger dimensions. It's going to be like a whole cube or a whole 3D triangle. So a piece is bigger than a slice. Some things are cut in slices because they are thin, and some things are cut in pieces because they are bigger. Okay, so these are differences. Okay, now let's go over the spelling. Okay, you have some questions or some confusion when it comes to spelling, especially the suffixes list. And how do we know which suffix to add if perhaps we got confused in the exam and we weren't sure of what we studied? Okay, let's discuss this. If a word is ending with a T, like act, normally after the T, we add ION. Okay, so act becomes action. So the suffix tion makes the sound shun. So if we have T at the end of the word, commonly we add ION at the end of it. Okay? Now, if we have words that end with E, like revive, how do we add suffix to it? We cross out, we cross out the E, and then we write the word after adding the ION. So it's going to be revision. So if the word is ending with an E, we cross the E and we put ION after the S. So it changes from revise the verb to revision the noun. Okay, if the word or the verb ends with DE, like example, explode. We have a verb that ends with DE. What do? We cross the DE and we add S instead. So it becomes explosion. Okay, so what we did here is that we removed the DE from the verb and then we added the suffix SION to make it from explode, the verb, to explosion, the noun. Okay, this is a rule. So if you have a verb and you want to change it into a noun and you don't know the proper suffix to add, you're going to just cross out the E and then put ION after the S. If it's ending with DE, you're going to cross both the DE and you're going to add an S and then ION. Okay, so these are to remember if you got confused in the spelling suffixes list. Okay, also we have the profession list of suffixes, like when we have someone who works in music, what do we add after C? We add the suffix IAN. When we have someone who works in electricity, electric, what do we do after the C? We add the suffix IAN. Notice that it's A, not O. So music, person who works in music is a musician. The person who works in electricity is an electrician. The person who works in politics, like the president and the government and the ministers, are, yes, what do we add after the C? IAN. So it becomes politician. So whenever we find the C, we add the suffix IAN at the end of it to become the job of the word. Okay? And the last list is when a word is automatically ending with a double S, we add ION to it so it makes the sound shun. Like we have to discuss this. This is the verb to discuss or to talk it out. And the noun is we had a very positive discussion. What did we do? We added ION to the word. If the verb ends with one S, we're going to double the S. So we're going to add another S and then ION to get the sound that we want. Okay? Like discuss is going to be discussion. If a verb ends with one S, we're going to double the S and then we're going to put ION. So this is how you create the words, changing it from verbs to nouns by adding some suffixes at the end of it. So you can just learn the rule if you don't wish to memorize it by heart. But it's better to study than to confuse yourself in the exam. Okay, and here we have the last type of question that might be tricky for you. It's the dialogue. Okay, some of the dialogue questions might sound confusing to you. That's because you don't read out the whole dialogue before you start answering. If you want to answer the dialogue properly, you have to read it all and then think about what are the possible answers that can fit in this question instead of just filling the dialogue and then reading through and finding that your answer doesn't make sense or in the incorrect tense. So instead of doing all those mistakes and wasting time, it's better that you actually read out the whole dialogue. Notice at the end of the dots whether it's a question mark or a dot so you can know if it's going to be a sentence or a question. Always pay attention to the grammar tense, whether it's past or present, so you can choose the correct form of the verb. And at the end, you have to read the whole dialogue through before you answer it, so you don't mix the answers or use an answer that is out of place. Okay? And this this these are all my remarks regarding the dialogue. Okay? And the last thing is Jane Eyre, the story. And this year we have a type of question called comment fully or write everything you know about this quotation. So we're going to bring you a piece of quotation from the middle of the story. And I want you to tell me everything you know about it, like who said it, to whom, why, and when. Like when I tell you a quotation like only graceful. Okay, only graceful. So who said that? Mrs. Fair. Mrs. Fairfax actually said that. Fairfax said that. To whom? Said that to Jane Eyre. Okay, when she asked her about who lives in the attic, and Mrs. Fairfax said that Grace was a strange, silent woman who never talked to any of the servants, but she isn't harmful. So this is all we know about this sentence. Only graceful. So one day Jane felt curious about who lives in the attic, especially when she used to hear noises from her room late at night. So she one day decided to ask Mrs. Fairfax. When she told her, only graceful. So Mrs. Fairfax said that to Jane Eyre. When? When she asked her about who lives in the attic. And then Mrs. Fairfax continued, saying that Grace was a strange, silent woman who never talked to any of the servants, but she isn't harmful. So she is not going to cause any harm to anyone, but she's strange because she's too silent. And she's the one who's living in the attic. Okay? This is an example of a commentfully question. When you have a quotation, you have to mention everything you know about it. You have to mention the first thing, who said it. The second thing, to who. The third thing, when. The fourth is why. So if you forgot one of them, it's okay. Try to remember and write the rest of what you remember. But it's very important that you write everything that you know so that you get the full mark of the question. Okay? So this is the end of our revision trips in this term, and I wish you all good luck in your exam, and I hope you all get great marks. Thank you and goodbye.